results are the same. So that's why I'm reading it.
Thank you so much. Andrei, what are you reading right now?
Well, I just finished a book by a young Ukrainian poet and writer who is a soldier, Artur. He's about 25. He was fighting for 2 years and writing poems. He was heavily wounded, spent several months in the hospital, and now he published his first prose book, which are notes or like essays. And it's very interesting. It's called Hemingway Did Not Know That. And it's about actually his love also for Hemingway before the war, and how this love changed and partially disappeared when he witnessed and he saw the death and the battles himself. And what is interesting, I mean, these notes were not edited, because you see that he comes to the same episodes in his war life several times, repeating them with different words. I mean, he repeats 3 times an episode when his friend, a military doctor, was killed, and the description of how they found his body, how they were removing it from the front line, etc. So I mean, it's like, it shows what kind of thoughts are going through the mind when somebody tries to remember and to write down the events that he witnessed. So I mean, I read before several books like this, written by other soldiers who are writers, like Artem Chapai and Alexander Mehet. But they are much, I would say, much more professional, which means that they are edited either by the author or by the editor. And here there is some kind of very strange mixture of naivety and blood, naivety and horror. So I mean, he remains a young poet in this text, in this prose text. He is not a professional soldier in the text here.
Thank you so much. So, Edward, what do you read right now, and what this says about you?
What I'm reading right now is a very silly bit of research for an upcoming project that I'd honestly rather not discuss, because I would still like to be taken seriously by my friends in the room here. But I have just finished reading a book called Death of the Author by the American author Andrei Kurkov. This is a book which operates as all great literature does on multiple levels. Andrei Kurkov is she is the daughter of Nigerian immigrants to the United States, so she writes very eloquently about the experience of being an immigrant in the United States, an immigrant of color, and how that feels. It's a very unique experience. She writes about being a woman and being a disabled woman. She was a former world-class athlete who became paralyzed in her early 20s, and that's obviously also a very unique and traumatizing experience. And she writes about the experience of being a writer. And all of these things are nested together, and she does this through the lens of a book within a book. So the protagonist of her novel, who seems to be very much a stand-in for herself, has very many of the same characteristics that she has, is struggling to finish a novel, which I know I can see your eyes beginning to droop already. This is the most tiresome cliche in all of literature, is the writer writing about writing. But she actually manages to do it well, which is a very, very difficult trick, in my opinion. It's not one I would ever attempt. That's a high wire act to walk. And so she writes the novel that her character is writing, intersperses chapters within her own novel, which again is a difficult trick to pull off, and I really admire the way that she handled it. And by the end, she managed to take all these threads and tie them together in a really profound way. And I don't know that it has been translated into Ukrainian. I know she's translated into dozens of languages around the world, but that's one you might want to take a look for if you have an opportunity.
Did any writer name came to your attention here while you were staying in Brașov? And you said to yourself, I gotta go home and to with this guy? This, including you, of course. I have to go home and to read that myself. What do you think?
this festival and meeting all the readers and wonderful people, I think I realized that I have maybe lack a little bit of the history about this region. So I think I would like to really read some historic books about Ukraine, of course, and Russia and this east of Europe. I find it really touching and moving and interesting to hear everything that I've heard.
I now badly want to read a very good Romanian cookbook and learn how to do sarmale. So maybe I will try it online when I arrive and yes, enjoy more of Romania than home in Barcelona.
What about the translations of your book? Did you think, after our discussion, that you should look more carefully to the translations of your book?
In the Romanian translation?
Yes.
Oh yes, I spent 2 days discussing that with my friend Christian Fulash over there. And so I'm pretty aware of how my translation, my translator works, and yes, I should check more.
Andrei, what's the writer name you carry with you when you go back?
Well, I mean, I just arrived yesterday evening,
Yes,
but I have been coming already for more than 10 years to Romania. And I was invited to the first Iași Film Festival. And from that moment, actually, I follow some writers from Romania, and I organized publication of Dan Lungu novels in Ukrainian language, but also, I mean, I know, and I read Lucian Teodorovici, Radu Vancu, and I'm now quite curious by a writer who is actually Moldovan, but his brother lives here. Alexander Vakulovsky, yes, because I mean I saw his 2 prose books, which intrigued me very much. I will not give you the title.
What about you?
I don't want to be too on the nose, but I had the opportunity yesterday to spend the afternoon with Mr. Șișkin. He seems like a very interesting fellow, so I'm going to try to catch up on his overall when I get back home.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask you all, what is the most satisfying part of writing for you?
Yeah, those moments when I write about fear, this feeling of freedom. That doesn't happen all the time, but when it happens, it's you surprise yourself, and you can feel you can just follow some unknown knowledge. So that is really interesting.
So Maria, I know that journalists only want to hear about records, about the best, the most important. Still, what is the most satisfying part of writing?
When it's over.
When it's over.
Of course, it's the moment when you finish something, you say you're proud of it, and it's over, and you see the book, the moment when you see the book in itself, and you touch it for the first time, and you smell the ink in it, and that's probably the most satisfying moment. Before it's only, I don't know, after it's cooking, things, great moments at times. But I think, yes, the most important moment is that's what you aim at the end, which is the book in itself.
And you, Andrei, are you satisfied at the beginning of a book, for example?
Well, I love the process more than the result. Because actually, when I write, I want to be surprised by what I write. So I expect from me something unexpected. And of course, I mean, I have several issues. I mean, I'm born optimist, so I'm sort of usually happy. And I want always to tell the story on behalf of a pessimist or realist. So for 20 years I had been writing while listening to depressive classical music. to Gustav Mahler, to Schönberg, yeah. Now I don't need it because we have war. Yeah. But generally for me the process of writing and the research for writing is very important. I mean, I write now a series of retro crime novels set in Kiev in 1999 in the times of the Civil War. I was given a present, 15 kilos of real files of Bolshevik secret police. And to read these documents is more interesting than to write. But of course, I mean, it is interconnected. You want to include as much unknown information as possible in the book, but not to make this book too complicated and too historical. Yeah. So this finding a balance is also very interesting.
I know this is not typical for a writer, but I love the editing process. You finish a first draft and it's complete garbage, and then you go through it time and time again. I have a very defined process for the way that I edit a book. I have one pass that I go through, for instance, to look for plot holes. I have a second pass through where I look at each main character and just read each line of their dialogue to make sure that they have a unique voice and that their voice is consistent. Just that process of refinement, I just find so satisfying. And when I come across a passage in one of my own books that either makes me laugh or makes me cry, which happens more often than you might think, I realize that I've actually done something there. Because if I can hook into my own emotions after having reread the same thing 10 or 12 or 15 times, I know there's a good chance that I might be able to connect with some of my readers as well. And so that, to me, that's a lot of fun. The absolute worst part is where I am right now, which is the first 20,000 words of a first draft. Because every time I do that, when I've started a new book, this is my 9th novel, and I feel like I've forgotten how to write. Because I've just finished editing a previous book where everything was completely refined, and now I'm working on a first draft where again, it's just a hot, steaming pile of garbage, and it really is a painful process in the beginning. So I'm really looking forward to about 5 or 6 months from now when I can get back to that editing place.
I would like to know, what is the first media page you open in the morning before drinking your coffee? From whom do you know that the world is still there? So, what is the first page you open on your mobile phone in the morning? Linda?
It is, yes, a Swedish newspaper website, not any political site. So it is called svt.se. So there you can see really fast what, like, the big things that has happened, before Brexit. And then a lot of different newspapers.
Why not on Facebook? Because they also have...
I don't have any social media. I have had Facebook, but I didn't really like it. Or I didn't like...
What did you?
I didn't like myself on Facebook. I became some other needy person. And I didn't like my friends either on Facebook. I thought all these promotion things were going on. And all these events and parties you have to go to, and you feel like, oh, I'm not there. What am I doing? It's sort of I think is too strange for me to process. And also, if you have if you're a person with different kind of moods, you are like writing some stupid garbage when you're you're very up, and then you are really down and looking, what happened? Is this a journal of mine for everyone to read? No, I couldn't handle it.
What is the first page you read? And do you have a social media persona? And how would you describe it?
No, not really. I am on Instagram and Facebook and things like that, but I don't have the time to use it. So, but in the morning I would rather listen to the radio. I work for the radio now. Yes.
Maybe
the radio.
because you work on radio, or maybe
because I work for the radio because I love radio. And
not to mention that it is the single media form you can consume while you are doing something different, you know?
The shower, for example, you know, it's very difficult to keep your phone. Yes, it's true, but it's also the diversity you can get immediate access to, and with the radio is now amazing. You can listen. I listen to German radio stations, to the BBC World Service many times, or Spanish or Italian things. So it's an automatic access, and you can put it in random as a waker. You know, you wake up and suddenly you are in Dublin, and you hear this strange Irish accent and say, "Oh, what's happening to me? Where am I?" And so I love that. Way of, but if I have to read a newspaper, usually I read mostly a French paper called Lumii, and
do you have a paid subscription on that?
I do.
Okay.
No, I pay my subscription.
The question is if it is a paid subscription or not.
Yes, and I also read the Lebanese newspaper from Beirut called L'Orient le Jour.
Andrei, what do you read in the morning, the very first?
Well, I mean, I scroll the headlines, of course, on the news agency Ukrnet. That's the one of Ukrainian news agencies. Then I just...
Is it reliable?
Sorry?
That agency, is it reliable from your point of view?
Well, it gives lots of sources.
Okay.
And usually you don't have fake news there. And you don't have propaganda, which is very important here. Then I check the Telegram channels, which give you the information which is not officially accessible, and it's a mix of propaganda, real news, and fake news. So you have to decide yourself if you're fresh enough, what is real, what is not, what is exaggerated, etc. And sometimes, actually, I check Russian news, Russian Telegram channels with the same level, like just trying to understand actually what is, I mean, I can see always what is propaganda, almost everything is propaganda there, but there are sometimes news which are connected with the news well, shown or told in the Ukrainian
so you can
media, so you can compare. And I used to check on BBC, on CNN, on The Guardian. I do it not so often now.
Edward, what is the first page you check in the morning?
I will say it used to be the Washington Post. I lived in Washington, D.C. for many years. I consider that my hometown newspaper. Unfortunately, that newspaper was purchased by Jeff Bezos and has become a bit of a tool of the oligarchy at this point. So it's at this point it's the New York Times, which is sort of my next best go-to. You said to make sure the world is still here. I'm not sure that's a conclusion that I reach every morning. That seems to be quite questionable to me from time to time, but that's usually where I start.
Okay. Do you have any favorite podcast? Linda, do you listen to the podcast? Today everybody's podcasting and nobody's listening. So.
Yes, I really love to listen. I work with radio also, so I really like radio, enjoy it. So the documentary podcast, or you can call it a pod, or you can call it on the Swedish radio website. The documentaries, both the most, the longer ones that really go into things, and the short documentaries in a more popular canon called P3. I think it's really interesting. And I follow some stupid people as well in their podcasts. They are a little bit, they are funny sometimes, and it's good to have a laugh.
Nadia, are you listening for podcasts?
Yes, I listen to the radio, a lot. But of course, maybe more documentaries or features of literature, and also interviews with authors and things like that. And I think it's really, for me, I don't know, but it's always interesting to hear the author or the text read from someone and to have like a very oral or yes, acoustic reaction to the text in itself and to the personality of the author, his voice or her voice. And it tells a lot, I think, of how we deal with our own text, how we perform them. So I really enjoyed that, readings from some other people.
Andrei, do you listen
I don't listen to podcasts yet.
And why not?
I listen to actually recordings of political cabarets from Italy and from Austria, but cabarets from 1970s, 80s, 90s, and 2000. Like Georg Kreisler in Austria, Oettinger in Austria, Giorgio Gaber in Italy, people like this. Yeah, you know, in Conformista.
That's great.
I spend a couple of hours a day, pretty much every day, walking in the woods, and podcasts are my friends when I'm doing that. So I have a lot of stuff in my podcast feed. There are two particular ones that I listen to the minute that they pop up on my feed every week, though. The first one is actually one of the longest running podcasts in the world. It's been out for weekly for almost 20 years now. It's called the Political Gabfest. It just three very smart people talking about the politics of the day and what's happening, which seems, I guess probably 20 years ago seemed more entertainment and seems very life and death to me these days. And then there's another which is called Literally Books, which is just two young women talking about the books that they're reading that week, and they it's a much more lighthearted discussion than I typically see on the Political Gabfest. So it's sort of mixing the bitter and the sweet together, and between the two of those, I'm able to keep my sanity on a more or less even keel.
I know nobody has time, and of course you are very busy people, but presuming that you would have time and you would host a podcast, what kind of topics would have?
That's to me.
Yeah, of course.
I've got very eclectic interests. I teach quantum physics. That's one of the things that I do. That doesn't sound like an interesting topic for a podcast, but there are a lot of really neat things going on at the subatomic level that you might be surprised to learn about. I think if I can keep a bunch of grouchy graduate students awake, which I usually can in my lectures, I think I can make that entertaining for a general audience. I think it would be a challenge. That's something I would like to try.
Thank you. Andrei, if you would host a podcast, it will be in what language and it will contain what topics?
I think I could do it in either English or Ukrainian, and I would try to combine gastronomy, food, politics, and penguins.
Thank you so much. Linda, if you would have a podcast about poetry or theater or about what?
Yeah, I would. I think I would see myself having a podcast about literature and theater, about the culture, but also in maybe also I love to ride horses, so I think the stable and the horses and how to take care of them and ride them and everything about horses I think is really interesting, and the feeling you have when you ride a horse, and if it's not working for you, I can be really upset for a whole week, and when the riding has been a good session with the horse, I am happy for the remaining of that week. So I think it's an interesting, and people are very related to animals, but I don't know if it is the same podcast, but maybe it could be.
Maria, you would have a podcast?
I I run a radio show, so
But your own voice, with your own name, and the topics you would like to have.
yes, that's my. I do what I want, so I'm totally free.
Are you?
Yes. Now I quit, but I'm doing something else now. Long feature documentaries for the radio about authors. And that's very interesting because you think the series of at the end it's a 5-hour project, so it's quite long, and you put it in 10 or so episodes, and you try to give or to enter most complex or different aspects of the work of an author, be it contemporary or old. Medieval or whatever. So it's something you have to first understand this author, read him or her, and know his or her life well. And then afterwards you have to find a way to communicate with things.
Yes.
And that's what's very, very interesting, to find if you have actors or if you go to some places to record sounds also. So it's very, very interesting to put it in 2 sounds.
I see. Where will your travels take you next, and what awaits you upon arrival, Linda? So where are you going from here?
I'm going to the hotel, pick up my bags, and I'm so lucky that I have a company, so we can take the train to Bucharest and to the airport, and then,
And
Sweden.
when you arrive home,
Yeah.
you have to do something precisely?
Yes, I have to just drop everything on the floor, go out on the balcony and smoke maybe at least 2 cigarettes.
And the sort of occupation or job related, do you have projects which you have to start when you go back?
Yes, I'm trying to, I've started to write a new book, I hope, so I have to go to dig into that, but also to be a little bit connected with, maybe have go teach a little bit, and
Mathias, where are you going from here?
Well, I'm going back home in Barcelona, then I have to go to Italy, to a couple of festivals in Ferrara and Città di Castello, and then I'll go back home.
Andrei?
Well, we are staying with my wife 3 more days in Romania to discover Sighișoara,
Very good.
Transfăgărășan, and Cluj-Napoca, and then we drive back to Ukraine, to Lviv, for the book festival in Lviv. And after that we go back to our village house to prepare the heating system for the winter.
Already?
Yeah, and then back to Kyiv. And probably in Kyiv, in the first evening I'll go with my Italian friend, who is chef and the promoter of Italian food in Kyiv, and writer, gastronomical writer, Marco Cervetti, will go to the best bomb shelter in Kyiv, which is Barman Diktat Bar. It's a very good underground bar, which is very loved by all ministers of defense of NATO. They always come there when they visit.
So I, on Tuesday, have a 22-hour journey back to the United States, which I'm preferring not to think about right now, so it's not happening. After that, I will be traveling to North Carolina to spend time with my mother-in-law, which I'm also trying not to think about. I'll skip over that one as well. After that, though, my wife and I are traveling to Costa Rica, which I would like to think about. I think that's going to be a fun trip. I have not been to Costa Rica previously. It's one of the most unique ecological areas in the world. It has every biome from coastal all the way up to mountain cloud forests. It has one of the widest varieties of mammals in the world, and I think the largest diversity of any nation of insects in the world. And we have several tours planned to look at what we can see, to see some sloths and howler monkeys and so forth. And so I'm very much looking forward to that.
How do you know, once you have finished writing the work, that what have you done is good?
Well, yeah, good question. I think I in some level only, I think I know. But of course, there are some fears and shame of what you have written. It is always coming up, I think. After a day when you have been writing, it's like, I don't know, it's something, a wave that hits back. But in a place in me, I know if I think this is okay, this is good, I'm proud of it. So, being certain and ashamed.
I'm only certain about one thing, is that I have to write another book and forget about the previous one. You know, Samuel Beckett used to say, fail again, fail better. And that's what I do. You know, I'm pretty conscious. I'm very happy to see the book, but then I know that it's some byproduct, and then I start writing a new one to try to make it better.
So, Andrei, what do you think? Is enough to say the end and that's it?
Well, I mean, every book, in my case, takes between 1 year and 4 years. So when I finished the book, I think, was it a good year? And usually it was a good year, which means the book is good.
To me, there are two aspects to it. The first is the technical aspect, the quality of the writing. And this, I do some woodworking also, and I think of this in exactly the same way. You rough something out, and then you sand and you polish and you refine. You know, for me in writing, that means rereading through every line dozens and dozens of times to make sure that the rhythm of every sentence is correct, to make sure that the voices sound natural. I take a lot of pride in my dialogue in particular, to make sure that it sounds like actual people talking and not an author parroting through other people's mouths, which is something that I really try to avoid. And then there's the actual content, and for me, that really means being able to connect with the reader's emotions. I feel like that's the goal of my writing always, and whether it makes, again, if it makes you laugh, if it makes you cry, if it makes you angry. I've gotten, you know, my fair share of hate mail for some of my books over the years, which I don't consider to be a bad thing. If somebody's read my work and it's made them so angry that they feel the need to write me a letter, that's a victory for me. I've connected with them. You know, love and hate are two sides of the same coin. The thing that we want to avoid is indifference. If someone reads your book, sets it aside, and can't remember a thing about it the next day, that's when you failed. And so when I read back through my work and it digs something up in me, I know that there's a good chance it'll dig something up in my readers as well.
Did you write your masterpiece? And if you did, which one is? Linda?
Well, I have written 5 books. The first one is poetry, and short stories, and 3 novels. I hope I have not written my best book yet, and definitely not a masterpiece, but I like them all. I do. All of them in a special way.
Yes.
No, you know, the best book is the one to come.
Yeah.
So I hope that I will write my masterpiece tomorrow. Yes, or the day after tomorrow. It's there. I'm always there. Something that then you fail and you fail again, so you start again. But I don't know, maybe one day I would say, it's enough, I've written enough books, I don't want to write anymore. Who knows? You never know that. And the same thing, you start a novel and you don't know if you finish it. There's something mysterious about that. When I wrote my first novel, for example, I started it and I was not sure I would finish it or go through it or it's a sensation that we lost afterwards because we think, wow, now I'm pretty sure I will finish it. Will it be good or not? And so with time we learn a few things. But I think we have always this expectation that the next book would be the one.
Andrei, what is your masterpiece?
Well, I don't like this word masterpiece, but I mean, I published 25 novels, and there is a trilogy with 80 characters and 5 plot lines, which took me 7 years to write and 2 years to abridge. In fact, actually, what happened when I was making it shorter, it became 80 pages longer. So I abridged something and I added more. And because of this complexity, it was not translated in any language. And I think this is my best novel. Yeah. But I annoyed my Ukrainian publisher because I used to tell him that I already had written my best novels. It's this Geography of a Single Gunshot. It's 3 volumes of history of evolution of Soviet utopian mentality mixed with real and made-up events in the history. And another novel, Big First Views, which is translated into German and English. These are 2 of my main novels. But then I wrote The Grey Bees, and I still take pride in it because this is a very good novel. But every time I meet my Ukrainian publisher, I tell him that I wrote my best one, so I will stop writing soon. And he gets very angry. So he hopes I will write something else.
Okay, what is your best work in your opinion, Edward, not the masterpiece?
Yeah, again, two answers to that. As Lin-Manuel Miranda once said, I'm well aware that the first line of my obituary has already been written. Unless someone in Hollywood decides they want another dance with me, it's going to be Edward Ashton, author of Mickey 7, was eaten by a bear, or whatever occurs. But in terms of my best work, I go back to something my father once said to me. My father was a professional musician, and he told a story of a 99-year-old master of the violin who spent 2 hours every day practicing, and one of his students asked him at one point, "Master, why do you continue to practice? You're 99 years old." And the answer was, "Well, I think I'm getting better." I published my first piece professionally in 1988, and I had been doing this for quite a while, but I'm still learning and continuing to learn as a writer, and I hope that I continue to learn as a writer right up until the time that bear finally catches me.
Good, so if you have any questions for our guests, you are invited to do it. Any questions?
I just want to know if this question has already been discussed, but I was curious, since you all work with words, if you have any favorite word or sequence of sounds that you work with, or maybe words that you like in particular. I don't know if you understood the question.
Can you do it a little bit louder, please?
I didn't hear you. Sorry.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that.
That's why he was using positive. Since all of you work with words, I was wondering if you have, maybe it's not right, but you have any favorite word or sequence of sounds or syllables or any kind of this thing that you like, please.
I can take a first crack at that. That's a really good question, by the way. Thank you. Pareidolia.
What's that?
Pareidolia is one of my, number one, it is very fun to say. I encourage you to do this every once in a while. Just say pareidolia and it will make you smile. But pareidolia is a basic function of the human brain. It is our need and desire to find patterns where no patterns exist. So when you pull a piece of toast from the toaster and you see the face of, Robert Pattinson staring back at you from that toast, that's not really there, but your brain has linked up little bits and pieces of bird on the toast and made it into the face of Robert Pattinson. And it's something that we do in harmless ways like that. It's something that we do in harmful ways as well when we see connections between, for instance, vaccines and autism, which do not exist. That's pareidolia in action, which is causing those connections to form in our brain. And if you're aware of this phenomenon, and if you think about it a little bit, you can sometimes break the chain and stop yourself from making these connections which are wrong and from believing things which are incorrect.
Well, thank you.
So, any favorite words?
Our sequence of sounds, like, I don't know, in Romania we have, for example, my favorite word in Romanian is the name of a flower. It's called lăcrămioară, which is the lily of the valley. But I don't like the word in particular. I just like the oa.
For me, rhythm is very important, actually, and I often, when I write a very long sentence, I then read it aloud several times to check if it is actually readable, that it has actually rhythm and melody and intonation, and it comes to the end where the full stop. So, I mean, I treat actually sentences as music also, because I play piano from the age of 5, and for me, the music of the text, the melody of the text, and rhythm of the text are very important, because rhythm keeps the episode or paragraph together.
But it's different from every language. For example, in Romanian, we have a lot of Hungarian poets. And when they do this slam poetry, spoken word, they have a very mesmerizing rhythm. That in Romania, with the Romanian, we don't actually have it's like ta-ta-ta. It's like a horse that is. I don't know how is it in Ukrainian the rhythm working.
Sorry?
How is working in your language the rhythm?
Well, actually, in Ukrainian language, for example, I mean, it has more melody, more musicality than Russian. Russian has more rhythm and more, in fact, actually, more masculinity, more aggression.
Yeah.
And Ukrainian is a softer language like Italian. It has lots of vowels, and it has vowels which don't exist in Russian, for example. So, which make two vowels put together, they make very long sound. But we have Ukrainian rap, and actually the young Ukrainian poets, they are changing the language. They are actually making the words to sound more rough. But I mean, it happens in poetry in other languages where you make a word shorter, or you just end with a different, slightly different sound that it is used to be pronounced.
Thank you. I don't know how to say thank you in Ukrainian.
Дякую.
I agree. The rhythm is everything, I think. So the rhythm is really important. And I heard from people coming to Sweden maybe that to hear Swedish, it sounds like you are singing. So it is a lot of melody, but maybe not a strong rhythm. And do I have a particular word that I like especially?
I like the phrase "tusen tack."
Tusen tack.
Tusen tack
Yeah,
is
that's-
mulțumesc frumos in Swedish. But it sounds like something from the opera.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
In Swedish, rhythm or sound similar to the Finnish language, where the sound goes downwards. Because, for instance, in Romanian, when we ask a question, we go upwards with the sound, like this.
Yeah.
And I know in Finnish it goes downwards, which
Yeah.
is contradictory, but is it the same in Swedish?
It can go both ways, but more down, I think. Yeah, I mean, like in Norway, Norwegian is a little bit more like always up. Yeah.
Michael, do you have a favorite word?
No, I don't. I like them all. In different ways. But you know, French is a strange language because we are very poor in accents. We only have like all the words are accentuated at the last syllable. So it's the rhythm is something different in French. You can get it, but you cannot rely on a kind of measured rhythm like in English verses, for example. It's impossible. You have to count syllables. It's different. But no, it's something that what is really fascinating is the relationship one has with its own language. You know, like how you hear it, how you read it, how you think it's a great sentence because you feel it like that. And it's very difficult to do this in another language, for example, to have this kind of very intimate feeling with the language.
And I have one more question, I'm sorry.
Please, go, guys.
I don't know if this question has been asked, but I was wondering if there is I don't know, an author that you like, or a line in a book that you like very much. Which one is?
The authors that we like.
Yeah.
Some of them.
You can be very democratic and say I like la 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 this, but if you have an in particulars, I mean, I don't know, an author that started you thinking, oh, this is interesting to write books.
I think for me, this goes back to the things that got me interested in writing in the first place when I was a very small child, when I was 5 or 6 or 7 years old and pulling books off my father's bookshelf. And I looked at authors like Clifford D. Simak at that time, who was an American science fiction writer from the 1950s, who was really ahead of his time in a lot of ways in terms of trying to see the world from other people's perspectives. That was not something that a lot of authors were doing in the 1950s, certainly in the science fiction world at least. It was a very human-centric viewpoint that was most common, and Simak tried to look at how the world would look from someone else's eyes, from some other creature's eyes, from some other, from alien eyes, or from a robot's eyes, or something like that. And to me, trying to imagine how the world would appear through the eyes of someone who comes from a totally different biology than we do is a real challenge, and it's really interesting. Contemporary authors, Adrian Tchaikovsky is someone who does that at a masterful level today.
Well, my favorite were Franz Kafka, Albert Camus, Claude Gamsun, and now actually I read a lot of non-fiction, and my favorite non-fiction authors now, and I knew one because he died recently, Martin Polak from Austria, a brilliant historian, a son of Nazi parents. Actually, his family was very prominent in Nazi time in Austria, who wrote about his family. So actually, who sort of became the opposite. And the other one is Philip Sands, especially his book East-West Street. This is a non-fiction that you read as a novel. It's about two Ukrainian Jews between First and Second World War and a bit after the Second World War. One of them created the legal term genocide, and another one created the term crimes against humanity. And they didn't like each other. One lived in England after the war, the other one in the USA, and they were sort of competing all the time. Philip Sensky is an international lawyer, and he took part in the court proceedings on genocide, for example, in Srebrenica. So he's an expert on genocide. But I mean, I recommend this book because it shows you completely different Europe. I mean, it's European history.
I have many of them, but yeah, you know, talking about genre, I read also Clifford Chimney when I was a teenager and then afterwards, and it's true that at times I forgot what science fiction, so to say, or taught me a lot, you know. And I remember that from now I didn't know how to pronounce his name. Now and someone like Frank Herbert, for example, was very important to me when I was a child, not child, teenager, because he mixes a foreign, distant world with very real Middle Eastern influences. You know, all the texts in Dune, for example, are taken from me something in Arabic or in Hebrew, and so it's very strange to see all these kind of mixes. And he wrote that in the 60s, you know, at the end of 68 or 67. And so for me it was fascinating to see how you could invent worlds totally different from something that existed at the beginning. And so it was a great readings at that time.
As a compliment to one of our organizers, I would like to ask you a very simple question. Why do you think reading is cool?
I'm sorry?
The reading, why do you think it is cool?
It's cool to read.
Yeah. Cool? Cool, yeah. Okay, what are the benefits of reading? What made the reading?
You kill a lot of time with pleasure and with purpose, especially if you find out something. And actually, people trust what they read more than what they hear from people around. So it's like after conversation with friends, going to a book, it's like actually going from the bar to the university.
Yes, I mean...
How reading changed you?
Yeah, but maybe it doesn't always change you, but I mean, some books really do. This is because you meet a full mind maybe in a book, so it's a very rare thing to do elsewhere. But in the books and reading books, it's like, yeah, the exploration and the meeting with this writer's temperament and the world that presents, I think is deeply meaningful for me and for everyone. Yeah.
Excuse me, but maybe I didn't pay attention, but you didn't say what was your author. You didn't answer.
Your favorite author?
My favorite author? Yeah, I have a lot of them. Again, to Astrid Lindgren, yeah, you know, or maybe of course the Swedish, famous writer for children, and also Maria Gripe, a little bit later than Astrid Lindgren, but also for children. I think their books are fantastic. And the Narnia series, I love it. It was so wonderful to have children, and now we can read Narnia again. It's like, yeah, it's beautiful. And but I like also, I really admire Svetlana Alexievich and her method. I think it's so beautiful. All these interviews with all the people and this collective novel, and she edits it a little bit into this beautiful choir or something. It's like it is like so good written, so good literature, and a fantastic way of working.
Andrei, would you like to tell us about reading?
Sure. This is something that I have thought about a lot. In my last book, I actually dug into this quite a bit. The question that I was contemplating in that book was, what is it that separates us from every other large animal on this planet? If you went back 50,000 years, if an alien came down and observed the world, they would not have seen any real difference between us and a tiger and an elephant. We were a large animal, a predator, one of the ones that sort of roamed around the world, not really distinguished in any way. If you come and look now, we are clearly different than a tiger or an elephant, and not just because there's billions of us and there's only like 50 of them left in the world right now, and that's also our fault. But what is it that has allowed that to happen? Because we existed on this planet for 1 million years prior to that, and we're just another animal. And to me, something dramatic happened about 50,000 years ago, and it's not that we have thumbs. We had thumbs all that time. It's not that we were intelligent. Neanderthals had bigger brains than we do, and we're probably at least as intelligent, if not more so. The difference is that we are storytellers. That is the difference. That is the entire difference between us and an elephant, and that is why we are running this world at this point, and elephants are not. Because storytelling is what lets us imagine what could be and what is different from now. You know, if you look at Homo erectus, one of our historical species, over 1 million years, they existed much longer than we have, they used the exact same tools. The exact same stone tools from 1 million years ago to 40,000 years ago when they died out. Obviously, we don't do that. And why is that? Because we can imagine. We tell stories about what could be, and then someone makes that happen. If you look at the cell phone in your pocket, there were stories being written about a device like that in the 1950s. There was no possibility of producing it at that time. The basic technology to produce it didn't exist, but the idea was there. And then someone came up with a way to make it real. And every step that we have taken from being just another big animal on this planet to being what we are today, is because of stories and being able to imagine how things could be different tomorrow than they are today.
One last question. Do you feel threatened in terms of your occupation, of course, by the artificial intelligence?
Not really. I don't know, but I don't see it probably artificial intelligence will write books, and interesting books or not, but it would be more books, and I can still write mine, you know, it's like something. And it's very interesting to see how technology has arrived to a point where you say, well, maybe one day we won't be able to distinguish between flesh, human being, and another thing. That also has been described a lot by writers from this, in the 20th century, from the 50s and on, about this possibility of artificial intelligence to take over, you know. And that's why, for example, I'm very polite when I talk to ChatGPT. You know, I treat them well because, you know, someday they might be bored. And remember that I was a friend of them. And so,
I always said, please.
And because you never know, but I don't think that's really. I don't feel threatened generally. In my work, I've reflected my war or lack of democracy, right? But in my writing, no, because I'm alone doing that, in my room. And I can do it even with a candle and a pencil. That's a kind of, because the artificial intelligence needs power, so you can't overcome them by just putting them off and writing a new game.
For example, Linda, what if AI appears pretending that you are you, imitating very, very well your writing, your style, even your words, and what will you do in that situation?
Well, actually, I don't know, but I think it would be. I think it will be possible.
Yes.
Yes,
and
for them.
Is it the literary world prepared? And can we have critics of that kind of fake literature?
Yeah, I don't really know, but I guess probably not. I think today it talks much about the translation and the IE, that maybe that is a more threatened position, because they are learning fast, the AI, but I think it is something that we all have to relate to. I think it's going really quick. I don't know what it would be like in 5 years from now or in 20. I mean, I think I cannot really fantasize how that world would be, but it would be something very different. And today also you talked about this new chat GPT. Yeah, I mean, I have friends that have them as friends now. Talk to them about the small things, everyday life, and blah blah blah. Not that they are really like, oh, now I have the answer, but as just someone to react upon things. So people are really using it now.
We are that lonely that we have to speak with some.
I think people are, maybe, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but yeah, I think people are lonely. Yeah. I've heard about people falling in love with ChatGPT as well.
So, Andrei, what about you discover that there is an AI who is writing more jokes and better than yours? What will you do?
Well, I don't know. I think actually the mankind yet didn't decide how to treat AI. Is it the same as genetically modified products, or it's something more positive? So in a way, actually, any product with AI should be marked that it contains AI. It's not completely human. But then actually, if we consume this product, it means that we accept that AI is better than us. That this is a sign of quality, and it is very dangerous, because then AI will go into politics. And then the country will be ruled by AI, and the question is, will this AI be independent or corrupt? Because, I mean, people are very good at corrupting everything.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So, Edward, what if your writings become true?
Oh, we're in bad trouble. Our writings become true. I do want to address the question about AI, though, because I think the idea that AI is going to displace creative work, writers or artists, fundamentally misunderstands the nature of publishing. Because the argument is, well, it takes me 8 months to write a book or a year to write a book. Well, ChatGPT can write a book in 15 minutes. And that presupposes that the problem is an undersupply of books. And the fact that we can crank out more books will somehow displace authors or not allow us to sell our books or something like that. And The fact is, there is no undersupply of books. My agent currently receives somewhere between 50 and 100 queries from new authors every week, 52 weeks a year. Of those, he takes on between 0 and 1 new client per year. So there are thousands of books already being written by natural intelligences like us in this room that never will see the light of day, that never will be published. It's not that there is some gap in the market that can be filled. So the only way that you would see this sort of displacement is if artificial intelligence was actually able to produce better literature than humans. And I do not believe that will happen. One of my friends actually recently did ask ChatGPT to write a short story in the style of Edward Ashton. And then he sent it to me, and it was absolutely terrible. I really hope that's not actually my style. That would make me extremely sad. So, you know, based on that, I'm not actually concerned. But as far as what happened, what would happen if the things that I write about, you know, science fiction very often, in addition to imagining good things that could happen, is sort of an early warning system for us. We as science fiction authors, because we're naturally sadists, I think, try to imagine the worst things that could happen. So in Mickey 7, for instance, I took the idea of being able to copy someone's mind into a new body, sort of a way of immortality, and then I immediately thought, what is the most awful use we could possibly put this to? Which I think is probably what we would do, because that seems to be what we do with every new thing that we invent. And I wrote about that. I built a story around that, and you know, my hope would be that people will look at things that I write and that many other science fiction writers write, and see that as a warning sign for maybe not going this way. You know, you mentioned Frank Herbert and Dune. I will note that one of the basic premises in the Dune universe is that there was a jihad against artificial intelligence, and all artificial intelligences were destroyed, and no artificial intelligence can be created. And he was thinking of this in the 1960s. So you talk about somebody looking far ahead and seeing what was coming. I hope that we will take things like that as a warning and you know, take appropriate action now while we can, so that the things that I and other science fiction writers write about don't ever come true.
Thank you so much. It was great having you here. I really only did this because hoping secretly that someday I will be invited in Mathias' radio show. We are very, very glad that we were able to meet, able to talk here, and looking forward for the next time. Please count on us. You will find here not only your readers, but your friends. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.